Cool. We're live. Hi, and welcome to GB Boxing and Fighting Irish. And this week, because there was no boxing at the weekend in the UK and Ireland, someone's on dial-up. We're going to go straight through to our prediction show for the weekend, and maybe we'll have a small discussion on the Eubank Ben situation at the end, if we've time. But anyway, I digress. So we're going to go full steam ahead into the wonderful match at the weekend. It's live on DAZN pay-per-view, or also, if you can get to the T-Mobile Arena, it's on live there too. Sorry, that was just my little joke. Anyway, right, boys. So who wants to start off then, kicking things off? We'll go with Adam. What's your predictions, or what's your vibe for the weekend in Las Vegas?
I'm very excited for it. So basically, this will be the third fight between Canelo and Triple G. This is for the undisputed super middleweight title. It's got all the belts on the line, and this will be obviously the third fight in the trilogy. Now, I've gone very much Al Bernstein in terms of I've got basically the keys to victory. So I've got three things that I think will be really important as to whether each fighter, how they'll be able to dictate the fight and if they'll be able to win. And I'll probably just start with Golovkin, because I'm going to guess that the majority of people here are going to pick Canelo. For Golovkin, the most important thing for him is the thing that, in my opinion, won in the last couple of fights, which he didn't get the decision on, which is his jab. Canelo is really explosive, throws beautiful combinations, but there's lulls. And I'm going to keep coming back to this again and again. And the thing that filled those gaps in the first two fights was Golovkin's constant jab. He's one of the top three jabs in boxing, and that's a huge key to him potentially winning on Saturday. We also have the activity. So this is a flip for both of them. So one of the problems is, as Golovkin's got older, he used to be a very consistent fighter, as most pressure fighters have to be, okay? He would constantly be pressuring you, and there was a lot of activity. He didn't have to be doing an awful lot, but there was a lot of activity. There wasn't an awful lot of him just kind of standing around doing nothing. If you watch the last few fights of Golovkin, as he gets older, his feet are a little slower, his hands are a little slower, and there are more gaps. So there are more gaps where basically nothing's happening, and your opponent is able to dictate the pace. And this is a problem. He needs to be able to work consistently through this fight. When Canelo takes a break, which he's prone to doing, and he will do.
I was going to say, because I thought Canelo had gotten significantly slower as he moved up the weights.
I would say so as well, but he's very good at basic, non-active stuff. So he will keep you busy without actually throwing punches. What I've seen with Golovkin and say the Murata stuff was there was just moments he wasn't doing anything, and he just had the earmuffs on and was just kind of blocking and defending. So he needs to be able to do that when Canelo works. And the last one is the distance. Basically, he needs to dictate this fight is fought at a slightly longer range. He had success at the end of the jab, at the end of the right hand. When it got closer into about your middle distance, Canelo's faster hands and better combinations were helping him land, and this was particularly prominent in the second fight. But again, in my opinion, he was able to dictate it so that it was slightly longer. So that's what the key is for Golovkin. For Canelo, the biggest one here, and the one if he's going to get a stoppage, is the body work. Golovkin's been visibly hurt to the body on several occasions recently. I think it was obviously in the Murata fight and in the Derevyanchenko fight as well. He was hurt to the body. That's what if you Canelo, that's where I'm going. You're going to occupy him upstairs, because I think Golovkin's got one of the best chins ever, certainly in the business.
I'm watching highlights, and Jesus Christ, you could throw anvils at him. I mean, why Coyote wouldn't be able to?
They're both exactly like that. I think it comes from they've just got obviously that innate granite chin, but because they've both got fabulous fundamentals and a really good base, you never catch them off balance to see everything coming. And I think that's so key to it. But the body, that's where Canelo works downstairs, takes the air out of the tires. That's his chance for kind of getting the stoppage. And again, hand speed. Basically, he's got faster hands than Golovkin. He'll be able to, if they punch together, Canelo will land first. Okay? And that's just got to be something he's got to be constantly working with. And it comes down to he's got to make Golovkin work. Golovkin is now 40. Now, I thought he looked well in the Murata fight for a 40-year-old Golovkin. And I do this quite a lot, is I'll hark back to the 3 knockdown rule. And Golovkin has lost a yard or two off his fastball. But it's a yard or two the vast majority of fighters don't have. I still think he's the best middleweight in the world, but as he ages, he does get slower. He does take rest more. Canelo needs to make him fight at that pace. He needs to make him fight and realize that he is the older guy. He's 40 in there. Canelo's 32. You've got to make that count. All in all, I'll quickly take you through how I scored the first two fights as well. So I had the first fight 8-4 to Golovkin, and the second fight 7-5 to Golovkin as well.
Golovkin.
So I had Golovkin winning both. Okay. The second one was closer. I think what happened, basically Canelo won his rounds fairly clear, and Golovkin then nicked a lot of the other ones on just activity on the jab. Okay. And on the first fight, I thought it was pretty clear. I thought it was a fairly simple, 8-4 kind of job for Golovkin.
Yeah.
This time round,
you have to be away with the birds to think anything else.
Yeah, exactly. I think Canelo wins the decision, and I think he'll legitimately win this decision. I think Golovkin will have his moments, as he always will, because he's a fabulous fighter, and they're basically made for each other. It's the perfect dance partner. But he's lost a few steps now. I don't think Canelo has. I think the weight will suit him back at 168. Maybe it'll rejuvenate Golovkin a bit going up, but I think at this stage it's Canelo's fight to lose.
Cool. Well, rather than go to Luke next, I'm actually going to go up and we're going to let Michael come after that and see what Michael has to say on that. And then we're going to go to Luke. So, Michael, what Adam said, I don't particularly disagree with. Do you have any different thoughts on that? And what's your opinion on that fight?
Yeah, Adam made some really good points. I completely agree with him, really, about the outcome of the fight. I think it's really Canelo should be winning this when you regard Golovkin's age, and I think the activity as well. I think Canelo's been a lot busier over the years. How many fights has Golovkin had since their last fight? Is it 2 or 3 max? I think. But also as well, I think for me this fight is slightly too late. I think it should have happened a little bit earlier. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think the biggest reason for me why it's happening now is ultimately because Canelo's lost. I think Canelo was in such a good momentum. He looked almost invincible at one point. There was one point when I actually thought Canelo might actually end up going to heavyweight at some point and giving them a run for their money. That's how good he was looking. But I think because Canelo lost in his last fight against Bivol, it kind of shows that invincibility is kind of be taken away from him. And I think now there's more of a demand for him to see Golovkin. And I think that's worked in Golovkin's favor of getting that trilogy. Because for me, I'm not too sure if this fight would have happened if Canelo had beaten Bivol. Because if he had beaten Bivol, I think ultimately the fans have been crying out for a Beterbiev fight or another big fight, or maybe even a cruiserweight. I think people would have been calling for that. I don't think there would have been as much of a demand for that Golovkin fight. However, I do understand there was a contract of some sort, wasn't there? I think the 2-fight deal was Bivol, then Golovkin, from my understanding. But kind of just echoing what Adam thinks, how I see the fight going. I think Golovkin's just got to do what Golovkin does best. He's got a high work rate, great engine, almost uses his great chin as an advantage. He can walk forward, he can take big shots. But like Adam said, he's 40 years old. No matter how good your chin is throughout the years, age always catches up to you eventually. How many of those shots can you actually take? But whereas I think Golovkin has a very underrated jab, in my opinion. It's not the fastest and it's not the kind of the most easiest on the eye, but it's an effective and it's a stiff jab. And his work rate is relentless. His engine, that's what he needs to do, really. That's the way he beats Canelo, in my opinion. However, I think Canelo has, especially since the Floyd fight, his head movement is so much better. His defense is so much better. He's powerful. He's been able to go up the weights because of his big, powerful frame. He's able to hurt people with his shots. I think, Canelo's really got to take any kind of lazy moments Golovkin may have, if he has any. Canelo's just got to take advantage of that and put the pressure on Golovkin for me to win this fight. But, if I'm going to make a prediction, I'm going to go for a Canelo points decision. I don't think he'll get Golovkin out of there, but I think he might win it wider and a lot more convincingly than the others. In terms of the previous fights, I had Golovkin winning the first one. I thought he was hard done by there. But in the rematch, I didn't score it. But I thought Canelo, I didn't argue with Canelo getting the decision. I thought he'd done enough. I thought he landed the more eye-catching shots, even though Golovkin was busier. I do think for me, I think it depends what you see in a fight. I think a lot of people like to see the busy fighter. In a lot of amateur shows, for example, whoever's the busier fighter sometimes gets the decision. Whereas for me, I'm more of a hit and not get hit. If you land the cleaner shots, it's that's what the aim of the sport is. I think Canelo did the cleaner work, the tidier boxing, and for me, I thought he just nicked it. But I wouldn't have argued either way. But I had Canelo just edging it. But I think, this time round, I think it's going to be a wider point decision for Canelo, I think. But I think Golovkin going to be dangerous early on.
Yeah, cool. Well, Luke, you've got 2 point decisions there for Canelo. So we're going to see, are you going to stir the honey pot here? Or are you going to toe the line?
No, not too much stirring being done here. I think Adam and Michael are pretty close to the mark. I think if it's not a unanimous decision, if it's not a knockout, I think there will be knockdowns for Canelo, and I say that plural. I think he will hurt Golovkin to the body. Golovkin was visibly hurt against Derevyanchenko, to the point where he was grimacing and nearly ran away from Derevyanchenko. And I don't think Derevyanchenko is the puncher that Canelo is. And I think Canelo is a lot more accurate and spiteful with his shots. Now, one thing I will say is in favour of Golovkin, if Canelo comes out and tries to make it a fight of pride or a tough man fight, I think Golovkin wins that. If it's a rock'em sock'em, I hit you, you hit me, let's see who goes down first. I think Golovkin will win that out of sheer grit and chin. Now, Golovkin is a notoriously slow starter, and it's only gotten slower from what I can see. I thought against Murata, he started off very slowly. It took him 5 rounds to get into the fight. And Murata had built himself up quite a good lead, but had also let a lot of energy slip and wasted a lot of shots in that fight. It was his big moment. And if he would have picked his punches better, Golovkin might have never got back into it. But being the old wily champion that he is, Golovkin was able to get his way back into the fight and find the stoppage when he needed it. I think against Canelo, he can't afford to start that slow. Now, Canelo is a slow enough starter himself. We've all seen that. And against good jabbers, he's always suffered. And he did. I agree with Adam and Michael. He lost the first fight. I scored at 8-4 to Golovkin. And then in the rematch, I scored at 7-5 in favour of Canelo. So maybe Adam and I have the same round, just the opposite way. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, look, you can't argue really when you say 7-5. It's much of a muchness. I think, as Michael said, it's too late. Really, the fight should have happened 5 months after the second one. If we're honest, they were both cut. Let the cuts heal up and let's go again back into camp. Canelo actively avoided the third fight with Golovkin. I'm not afraid to say that. I think he did.
And the first.
Yeah. But we can't say. I won't say he avoided Golovkin when he did fight him, that kind of way. But I think he definitely avoided the third fight. The first fight he had to kind of do the rematch, even though that was delayed as well. But yeah, this has been delayed just ridiculously. Now, one thing, the three of you would probably shake your heads at me, but I've said for years I don't think Canelo is that hard to beat with his style. I think the caliber of fighters he's fought, obviously, he's gone through them. But the likes of Bivol beat him with a jab and a right hand and some good footwork. Canelo's not the hardest puzzle to figure out if you've got really good fundamentals and know how to stick to a game plan. Golovkin beat Canelo. We all saw that. Lara.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, Luke. You could also make a case that Lara beat him as well. Did you know what I mean?
That was just what I was about to say. Arislandi Lara. I think I had a 7-5 on the night to Lara. Canelo's bodywork was good, but not much else really. And then obviously against Floyd, he didn't win a round in my opinion. So I think Canelo's style, he fights like a big man, if that makes sense. He fights like he's much bigger and more powerful than he is. And I think a lot of his opponents buy into that and give him the space and respect that he needs to get his work done. And I bet you Callum Smith was looking at the Bivol fight and absolutely kicking himself, thinking I could have done that.
Yeah.
And you look at Golovkin, he didn't let Canelo come forward in that first fight. He stuck to his jab. He pressured on forward, nice small steps, nothing big, nothing crazy. Landed his right hands, the odd left hook got in. and he did his work and he got away most of the time. Canelo came on stronger in the latter half of the fight. And that's what won in the second fight for me was Canelo's combination punching and him punching with Golovkin. But I think this time around, Golovkin's just not going to have enough. And that's no disrespect to Canelo either. I know there's a lot of big Canelo fans out there. I'm not saying he's no good. I'm just saying I don't think he's the hardest style to figure out and beat. And for my money, he's lost 4 times. You know, yeah, I think he should put Golovkin down. Golovkin is old, especially not so much today that he's old, but he's old for his style. So Golovkin's style suits a younger man. Active, big punching, good jab, you know, not afraid to take a shot. That's for a guy in his late 20s to mid 30s, not a guy in his early 40s. And I think he will come unstuck here against Canelo. Canelo's got a big chip on his shoulder. He's just coming off a loss. He wants to prove he's the best. And I think he will probably put Golovkin down to the body and win a wide unanimous decision this time around. Okay,
so you're saying Canelo will achieve knockdowns?
I think so.
Okay, right. Just before I give my 2 cents worth, hi Stephen there, and Stephen welcomes Michael, and Marty Mack has just given you all thumbs up and boxing glove emoji. So thumbs up and boxing glove emoji straight back to you, Michael. Marty, sorry. So my opinion is largely in line with everything you guys have been saying. I mean, like, the one thing I don't want to happen is I do not want Golovkin to be stopped. I think it'd be very unfair on him. And I mean, you know, Canelo can win on points and nobody will care. But as long as he doesn't stop him, I'd see that as a moral victory for Golovkin. Like that, like you've all been saying, I think it's his age that's going to go against him. The only thing that might help him is the fact that Canelo has to come back down in weight, and he's after coming off a very dispiriting loss. And Canelo does seem very agitated by what Triple G's been saying, but none of what Triple G's ever said was false. I mean, he did have a drugs ban. That's correct, you know, and he did lose and was was fairly well beaten when against Bivol. I mean, so if that's getting inside Canelo's head, then well done to Triple G. Will it be enough on Saturday? I don't know. I know I'll be there and I'll see it with my own eyes. Did I mention I was going, lads? I don't think I've said that actually.
No, I don't think you have. No, do you want to remind us again?
Well, I just happened to be in Vegas that day for an exhibition, so I might pop in afterwards. And so I'd love to see a great fight. I don't want to see. I don't think this will happen, but I'd hate to see Canelo overpower Golovkin. But I don't think Canelo can do that unless, as Adam was saying, the body is dangerous. And Canelo does like the body. So if Canelo works the body, it could be a way of getting him down. I don't think punching him on the chin is going to achieve anything except maybe hurt your knuckles, because Gennady Golovkin has just got the most granite chin in the world. So, but like that, I unfortunately can see it being a wide points decision for Saul Alvarez Canelo, and he won't need any dodgy judges either. Going back to fights 1 and 2, fight 1, like everyone else, I had 8-4 for Gennady Golovkin. Fight 2, however, I had 7-5 to Triple G, to Canelo. So it was very close. I mean, and around either way. So I wouldn't have disputed either one winning. So it wasn't a robbery. The first one was certainly a robbery. The second one was not a robbery. And anyone that cries robbery about the second is wearing their blinkers, because it was a very close fight, and either man, you could see either man getting the decision, and Canelo was likely to get the decision where he was. Will justice be served this time around? I'm afraid life doesn't work like that, and I can just see a wider points win for Canelo this time around.
Yeah, I think if you're a ride or die, Canelo or Golovkin fan, that's the only way you scream robbery. I think if you're 100% Canelo through, Golovkin through, that's the only way you're going to see it as a robbery. If you're watching from a neutral point of view, like you three, you've got it. I think you were 7-5 either way. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? Three different opinions, all have it that closely. There's no way you can say it was a robbery by any means.
It's one of those ones where I think because the first fight was a bad decision, the second fight it kind of carries over, where people are like, oh, he's been done the first one. This one,
because we wanted a sense of natural justice that was never.
We wanted Triple G's revenge. That's what we wanted.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
vendetta. To quote, was it Sideshow Bob Jr., wasn't it? So Stephen McGurr has jumped in with Canelo's no spring chicken either. No, but he's like a lot of the chicken in America. He's very enhanced.
Well, I think the thing is with Canelo having like you say, he's been pro since he was 15. I think what you forget is Golovkin had 350 amateur fights.
Yeah,
and also
so that,
just about
30 of those fights Canelo had weren't taxing whatsoever.
Yeah, they're guys in Tijuana. Like it's different stuff. I will say.
Whereas fighting kind of Olympic box off in Russia and the former Russian countries, obviously Kazakhstan's an independent state. That I'd rather be over, taking my chances in Tijuana, to be frank, because it's fairly ruthless that Olympic box offs in Eurasia. But so unfortunately, we all seem to be, well, unfortunately or not, we're all in fairly chorus there that we all think that it's going to be Canelo, and it's going to be Canelo clearly on points. It's not going to be close. There's going to be no cries of robbery. Well, there will always be cries of robbery no matter what happens. I don't think he will knock Triple G down. Now, obviously, Luke does. Does either of the other two guys have an opinion on that?
I think it's less likely, but I can totally see a body shot putting him down. I can see it happening.
Yeah.
It's because the warning signs are there. The warning signs are all there.
I think knockdowns are possible either way. I think Golovkin could possibly knock down Canelo if he catches him right.
Yeah,
I really do. And don't forget those first two fights.
But if he does, the loud cheer you hear will be from me.
But like no matter what no matter what Canelo thinks, in those first two fights, Golovkin gave him hell. He gave him hell. And I just think coming off a loss, it's gonna sit on your mind a bit. I think I don't know. I think he knows the dangers Golovkin brings to him, and I think he might be more cautious this time round, and that could work against him.
I will say
Canelo certainly seems rattled in all the press conferences, like really rattled.
He's grumpy now these days. It's great. I will say I'll add one more thing in. So you guys, Luke was saying about the kind of the style to beat Canelo is really solid fundamentals. I'd add one caveat to that is you need the physicality to go with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I think you've got to have that. If you don't have that elite physicality to back that up, then I think because Plant's got reasonable fundamentals and Billy Joe Saunders have reasonable fundamentals. They just didn't have the physicality to back it up at all. I think that's the difference. Bivol had that. Floyd.
I would say if I was Triple G, what I do is I would get on top of him early and just try and overawe him, because like Luke was saying, everyone seemed to give him so much respect.
And just to add to what Adam said there in regards to Billy Joe and Plant, they let their fundamentals slip once they got comfortable, and that was a big issue. Like Billy Joe was boxing lovely behind the jab, circling off to his right, not letting Canelo throw that right hand, and he was weaving under so that the left hook was missing. After about 4 rounds, maybe 5, Billy Joe started dropping the hands, planting his feet, and trying to land pot shots, and that's when Canelo started absolutely hammering him.
Was that a kind of a rope-a-dope strategy by Canelo?
I think it's people get tired. I think the way he does it with that front foot, really short, that really good front foot pressure, a similar thing to Golovkin does. It's fun. You look good for 3-4 rounds, but ultimately you get tired.
What people fail to realize is Canelo has quite slow feet, but he's inching towards you. So they're not big movements. So you don't realize you're going back little by little by little. And then before you know it, you're on the ropes. So what you've got to do, you've got to be super aware of where you are at all times. And when he's inching towards you, you have to make a big movement either way to make him reset. And that's your chance then. And as Adam made a point as well, is the two of them, they like to throw punches in bunches and then take a break. So you've got to catch him in the breaks as well.
Yeah.
not just when he's punching. And I think Golovkin's not going to have that. Now, I am glad. I'm not a Canelo fan, but I'm glad we didn't see him beat Bivol
I thought you were the way
and
you're
fight
speaking.
and fight Beterbiev, because that would have been
Well, I
that would
think
have been
Beterbiev is completely off
a public
any.
execution. Is
Well, I
is what
don't
that
think
would
he's
have
ever
been.
going to fight Beterbiev. I think he was going to try and find an easy cruiser after if he was
Well,
looking
I mean,
against.
even
There's no such thing as somebody
Yeah.
that starts at 154. And he's not Roy, so he's not going to dance around them.
there's no
Okay.
easy crew. Like even Makabu, who I don't rate, would probably give Canelo a very, very hard night.
He still
You know
punches
what I
like
mean?
hell.
Yeah,
He still
exactly.
properly punches. It's not an easy
Yeah.
night.
I think McCarthy's quite underrated myself. I think he knows his way out the ring. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just proved with you know his fight that he effectively Eddie was looking, well, which is the easier opponent's light heavyweight, and he was so easily dismantled. He went, well, that project's over, you know.
But it's
Like with light heavyweight, Canelo's not a light heavyweight.
No,
he didn't look great in the Kovalev fight.
No, he didn't.
No.
And like I said to anyone who'd listened before that Bivol fight, this is going to be an easy fight for Bivol. Don't be betting on Canelo. This is easy for Bivol, and it should have been, because Canelo's not a light heavyweight. He's 5'8".
Yeah. Well,
He
it
should
was.
be at He should be at 160. Do you know, really? You know, this fight shouldn't really be taking place at 168 in the first place. I'd like to see Canelo down at 160 again, because that's where the real good fighters are. You know, you've got the Charlos.
I don't think there are any at that weight. I think at the minute there's some brilliant fighters at 154. There's some brilliant fighters at 175. I think 160 and 168 currently are probably the weakest divisions in boxing.
Yeah,
well, Andrew,
I rate Charlo.
Is that so easily cleared out by Canelo?
Yes and no. You've still got to be good enough to knock everybody out and or beat everybody at a weight class that's 2 weight classes above where you start. That's still pretty impressive. And Callum Smith is still a really good fighter. But if you look at it, like Luke's going to say, Charlo's not impressed me as a middleweight at all. Montiel, not good enough. That's what it is. It's not good enough. Andrade's fought nobody. Like as a Januzbek, the WBO champion. Januzbek, he looks good, but again, he's not fought anybody.
11 fights, sure. Yeah.
So Golovkin has got the best win. He knocked out Murata, and then you look at everybody up at super middleweight. Like I'm not Durrell, not that Durrell's done at this stage. Caleb Plant has never really impressed me at this stage. Billy Joe, I mean, Smith is gone. Ramirez is gone. The only fighter I want to see Canelo in with around this weight after this fight is Benavidez. He's to me is the best of that bunch, personally speaking.
Yeah.
Just going back to Andrade though, do you think I completely agree with Adam? He hasn't fought anyone of note. I don't think he's ever fought a former world champion. I think I saw a tweet.
Future, former, or active. He's never fought anybody.
But at the same time, though, he did call up Canelo. He did disrupt the press conference. You know, Canelo could have made that fight happen if he really wanted it. Do you know what I mean?
He wanted the money.
He wanted
Andrade anywhere?
Anti-box office. He's awful to watch. You know, there's nothing in Canelo fighting him.
I think he's got a difficult style to beat, though. No one wants him. I don't think anyone wants to fight Andrade. I don't get me wrong. He's not the best to watch, but he's a very skillful fighter, and I feel like
he's very skillful, but he's very.
He's never given the chance.
Do you know what Andrade does well though? He starts very fast and he punches very hard.
He fights against lower opposition that he's better than, and he cruises.
Yes, and you know what his issue is? He goes down to the level of his opposition.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to point.
We've seen many great fighters do this, and I've seen people myself do it in amateur gyms. I've been a victim of it myself. When you're sparring a novice, for some reason you go down a few levels to their level, and I think Andrade is guilty of that. He's also been very, I wouldn't say poorly managed. Like for the Billy Joe fight, that wasn't his fault. Do you know? He went to fight, Billy Joe Saunders. That messed up because of a drugs ban. Now he did make a weak attempt to fight Canelo and gain a bit of traction behind that. But what he needs to remember is he's got about 20 fans in total worldwide. And like Enda says, is the general consensus that he's very hard to watch. Now, I actually like watching Andrade, and I've tuned in for all of his fights.
I think that would actually back up my consensus.
Even though he's knocked out a couple of Irishmen lately, and
Welshman.
I am, yeah, and Welshman, yeah, well, yeah, he beat
He beat
Williams.
him. He didn't knock him out, but he could have
he-
knocked him out. Like I said, he dropped down to the level. He cruised.
Yeah, exactly, he
didn't
did. Yeah, I think him versus a world level opponent would bring the best out of him, and I think he deserves to show that, and we deserve to see it, because if there is more levels out of Andrade, I want to see them.
Yeah.
And has Andrade given up the WBO belt?
He's moving up to
He's
160.
Go on,
gone up to
Aziz,
super middle.
Yeah. So
Is he going to fight?
bring
What's his
back
name? Zach Parker or something?
Zach Parker. I'm going to bring the
Yeah.
Andrade thing back to Golovkin, because it's a really good example. And we're talking about how here's a guy nobody wants to fight. He's a world champion. Nobody's arsed in fighting him. And he's going in there against subpar opposition. And he's not going, I'm the guy. You need to fight me. I'm legit. Because he's playing with his food. When Golovkin was the WBA regular champion back in the day, what was he doing? He was putting people to
KOing
sleep.
everyone.
He was KOing everybody. And he got traction. How did he get traction? Because he was supposed to fight Stern. Stern bailed. Okay? So he just kept knocking people out. Then he was supposed to fight Martinez. Martinez didn't want it. Just kept knocking people out. Cotto, same thing. Canelo dropped the belt. It's exactly the same thing. And then suddenly, by the time he's knocking out David Lemieux, he's got this massive cult following because he's entertaining to watch. It makes a difference. You have to move the needle. If you're going to be boring, no one's going to pay you the money. Because ultimately, there's two things that dictate your worth in boxing. It's how many people pay to watch you live and on the telly. Other than that, it doesn't actually matter. And he's not done it.
On seats.
100%.
And that's on him. That's the onus is on him.
You have to hold your level no matter who you're boxing.
And you gotta make people want to see you again. And and that's the thing. I thought Golovkin,
I think
that was his thing.
Wasn't it Kathy Duva who had Golovkin and Kovalev?
Yeah.
At the same time, she was a genius. She was.
Yeah, she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Anyway,
like the two of them came up very similarly when you think about it.
Well, they were the kind of the first kind of wave of people that got, because you had Klitschko, which was obviously the Ukrainians, and everyone was like, not that arsed. Obviously, they're big, but they weren't that big in the States. And Golovkin came through, and Canelo.
And they fought largely out in Germany.
They were both trained by Abel Sanchez, I think, at one point as well, weren't they? I think Kovalev left Sanchez for what's his name?
John David Jackson.
That's the one.
Yeah, John David Jackson.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant, and it's a wonderful story, and then it's led us for Lomachenko and Usyk, and I could talk about that for ages. But it's you've got, if you've got the chance to impress, you've got to do it. If you're trying to call out a Canelo, because they're not going to pay you.
Here's a question: if Golovkin loses on points like the three think and I think, but he puts up a good show, should he retire?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he will retire as well.
I think this is a swan song, and he knows that. I mean, there's no point in him fighting other fighters. He'll just take his money and go.
But I think
it's the only fight he wants. It's the only one he wants, I think.
I think having that mindset though of retirement in the rear view, in the short future, I think that's a bad thing to have in your head going into a fight, especially of this caliber.
Well, you
very much varies, because certain fighters
say, I'm putting all my eggs into this basket.
There's one fighter I can think of recently. Well, not even that recent. It's Carl Froch against Groves. That suited him when him saying, "This is it now. This is my last fight in front of 80,000 at Wembley." And Kazagi against Jones. I mean,
he pretty much announced his retirement, didn't he? Before I know Jones, Jones was 10 years past Jones's prime. But.
No, I'm not going to jump down Kalzagi's throat. It's not his fault. But exactly. But I think for some fighters it can be bad as well. You hope he retires in regardless of result, Stephen. I think if he wins, what a swan song! Beat Canelo and feck off. Yeah.
Here's a question for you, right? And we'll have a little discussion like this. If he does, if say either guy wins, where does that affect where they stand? Like, where will they be remembered? And because that's what ultimately, the legacy is thrown around a lot, and it is ridiculously overused, right? But we are at that stage with the pair of these, pair of them. Where do they stand currently? What does Saturday night do to change where they stand?
Golovkin is a top 10 middleweight, probably. Maybe top 15, top 10 middleweight. If he beats Canelo, obviously it's a super middleweight title, but look, he's a career middleweight. In paper, he's an undisputed champion. He's a 2-weight world champion. He's only lost in a controversial decision. We say controversial, tight decision. And I think he goes down as one of the best fighters of the 2000s for sure. And if Canelo wins, he was supposed to win this.
Yeah.
I don't think this adds to his legacy so much as maybe what might happen in the future.
I would agree. So I also think, so for me, and I'm a huge Golovkin fan, he's an all-time great middleweight, so a top 10 legit middleweight there. And in the weird way boxing works, I would say Canelo's achievements across the multiple weight classes would put him higher up in the rank, the pantheon of all fighters. Than Golovkin's single achievements at middleweight. But Golovkin's the better fighter of the two.
Yeah, I think I think Golovkin will go down as a great middleweight champion, one of up there with the kind of the dominant, the hagglers, etc. I think when it's all said and done, though, I think Canelo was kind of the career-defining fight for him, and he will kind of not be remembered for that loss. But I think if he had beaten Canelo, I think he'd be up there as an all-time great, if that makes sense. But I think now, I think he'll be a Hall of Famer. But I think I put him in kind of the brackets with the Julian Jacksons and the kind of Jared McClellans, those kind of really ferocious, dominant kind of middleweight champions, but not quite. I don't think he goes in anyone's top 20 of all time, if that makes sense. Whereas Canelo, because he's gone for the different weight classes, and will probably win a few more world titles before his career, or maybe a couple more. I think, you can make an argument for him being in your top 10 or your top 20, perhaps.
Do you reckon ever?
Definitely in the top. Well, it depends, isn't it, what your opinion is. But I think you definitely put him in the top 5 Mexican fighters of all time.
That's a great debate. I like that one as well. I love
that.
I'd have a lot to say on that.
Mexicans of all time. I'm just going to jump in on that now. I largely agree with everything everyone said. Regardless of what happened Saturday, Gennady Golovkin is an all-time great middleweight. However, Canelo is an all-time great pound-for-pound boxer. So I think that's what everyone.
I don't think so. I think maybe top 100. But I don't think
he's very harsh on
I say probably somewhere around top 50, top 60. I think we forget how. So I will say with Canelo.
But I just think it's the breadth of his achievement is what's going to push him higher.
But I think when you're talking about that level, like when we were talking about the top 50 guys, it's not just what you achieved; it's who you beat,
and it's who's ever. You're talking about every boxer ever.
Yeah,
like it's such in the top 100 of over 200,000 fighters, I'd be pretty happy to be in that list.
Oh yeah, it's a ridiculous number.
So,
there's a big
love your Canelo.
Look at this way, right? With Canelo,
no offense, but no, I do think Sal Canelo Alvarez. Okay, top 50. Okay, I
think top 50 is fair.
Top 50 pound for pound of all time. I mean, I think that's a wonderful achievement. He wins on Saturday. He goes back into the top 5, probably pound for pound current fighters. Gennady Golovkin, then he can, like as we've all said, he's an all-time great middleweight, and that'll be his crowning glory. So, where will we go from there? I mean, Stephen McGurr is in agreement with everyone here. He says it's a tough argument. There's been some great fighters throughout history. Like, I'm not saying for a moment he's in the top 5 or the top 10, maybe in the top 20, but I will concede top 50.
With that argument there, I think for me personally, I've struggled to really discuss anyone that's, say, past the 70s, because I've never seen them.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the classics. So I think Ray Robinson is the consensus #1 fighter ever. I've never seen any footage of him, so I'll just succeed to guys that have watched more and know more and have seen more.
Yeah, well, I was the same, and this gentleman here, Stephen McGurr, provided me with some DVDs, and I have watched him, and he is the most beautiful boxer to watch.
Yeah, see, like I've grown up watching the lads from the 50s, 60s, onwards. Sometimes 30s and 40s, Yeah, they did. Like, people think back then they couldn't fight like today, but they could. Their fundamentals were so spot on. They had to be. Don't forget, these lads are fighting every 3-4 weeks.
Like, even Floyd Mayweather said he based his style on Sugar Ray Robinson,
Yeah.
and you can see it.
And he said he took from different fighters and tried to add it all up. Yeah, exactly. And like I discussed, I said it in the group chat the other day about Archie Moore, the Mongoose. Now he had over 220 fights, 180 odd knockouts, the most knockouts ever in boxing. And
most knockouts by a champion.
Yeah. He went up from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight, held that light heavyweight title till he was 46. Back then, that was a crazy number, 46. Yeah. And you know, I think of guys like him when I think of top pound fighters of all time. Canelo doesn't even bang that drum for me anywhere near those guys. And like for Golovkin, you're talking middleweight supremacy. So yourself, Adam, especially, you'd put him up there with the likes of Monzon,
Hagler. Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
and I think
Sugar Ray Robinson.
Right? Yeah, what I will
just to challenge that theory, though. Just to challenge that. Golovkin, great champion, and I somewhat agree with you in terms of you put him up there. What's Golovkin's best win?
Yeah,
how many great fighters has Golovkin beat? Danny Jacobs probably his best win.
It's Canelo. The answer
Canelo
is
Canelo.
It is Canelo first fight, and I think there's a general consensus.
But in the history books, he didn't beat him, did he?
No,
I think there's a lot
in the history book, O.J. Simpson didn't kill his wife, and we all know he did.
It's one of those ones where I think
that's what I say to people who say things like that. I said, well, then O.J. Simpson didn't kill his wife because officially he didn't. You know.
So let's. Well, this is my argument, right? So I'm going to make the case for why I think Golovkin is the top 10 middleweight ever.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Why I think. So there's ways across it. So Luke tends to judge on how good he thinks everybody is. Okay. So the argument is, how would I think Golovkin fares against anybody? So as an amateur, Golovkin is 345-5 with an Olympic silver medal and I think it's a world gold, right? So
yes.
He's got fine fundamentals and he's beaten a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. As a professional, his best win is probably, like you said, Danny Jacobs. It's Canelo. Do you guys count the draw that Pernell Whitaker had against Chavez against him?
No, and I don't count Canelo. I don't count the Canelo draw either.
Yeah, but this is the point, right? So this is the point. If you've watched that fight and you know he won, I'm quite happy to give him the credit for that. So, for instance, Roman Gonzalez is in my top 10 because, as far as I'm concerned, he beat Estrada quite clearly.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right? So this is just the kind of things, right? He's come as a professional. He's knocked 20-odd people out in a row. He's never been knocked down. The major champions at the time were Felix Sturm, Miguel Cotto, Sergio Martinez, and Canelo Alvarez. All four of them at one stage avoided him. Legitimately gave up belts and said, no, I don't want any part of that. And that tells me that's the guy. So I think Golovkin is the best middleweight since the 90s.
Okay.
That's really in my personal view. That's my argument.
I think Sergio Martinez at one stage would have definitely beat Golovkin. I think Golovkin would have found it very hard to track him down. Now, that's only a 2-year gap, by the way. Other than that, he'd have murked Martinez. I think Winky Wright would have given Golovkin a very good fight. Mm-hmm. And I think Paul Williams, God love him, would have definitely given Golovkin a good fight as well. I'm not saying that Winky Wright or Williams would have beat him. I'm not too sure. But I think they would have definitely given him a lot of competitive fights. I would actually
love to see Golovkin.
What Kelly Pavlik?
Kelly
Pavlik.
The problem is that you've got an arsenal of two guys can punch like hell, but one's got a better chin. And one's got better fundamentals.
Now, since the 90s, Adam, are you including Hopkins?
Yes, but so I'm including the best of B Hops was in the 90s. So that's your line.
Okay,
so that's my line is Hopkins.
Because not forgetting Hopkins was still bloody good coming into the 2000s too.
Yeah, but I will say so. His defining the stuff that everyone talks about, obviously with Hopkins, is he beat Trinidad and he beat De La Hoya. Those are his marquee wins. Neither of whom are middleweights.
No.
I'm aware this is a controversial opinion because I've had this argument before.
Okay.
I pick Golovkin to beat Hopkins.
I
But
can
I
see
think-
cases for both men.
I can see that. So there you go.
No,
But
you know what?
There's a case for both.
I can see it, and
Mhm.
the way you were talking there, I can definitely see how because I think Golovkin can take more from Hopkins than Hopkins could take from Golovkin.
I'll say this.
If
I'll
you
say
look
this
at
in
the-
favor of Hopkins. One thing Golovkin and all the Eastern fighters that I've seen can't do well is fight on the inside.
Mm.
And Hopkins is a nightmare if he's 6 inches away from you. He will
Yeah.
tie you up.
Yeah.
He will punch you anywhere.
Mm.
He'll frustrate
Would,
you. He'll
would
make you miss.
Golovkin allow himself to be in that position?
So this is the thing. If you watch Hopkins, right, and he was older at this stage, but to be honest, Hopkins didn't really age
No.
too differently, right? He couldn't deal with Kovalev. And Golovkin is better than Kovalev in terms of the jab, in terms of the straight hands.
Mm.
That's a bit the long jab, the long right hands. Golovkin has better feet than Kovalev. That's the fight I look at and go, right. B Hop's the greater fighter. I'm not having this argument. B Hop's achievements
Yeah.
heavyweight in the years, unbelievable. But as a middleweight, I pick Golovkin to beat Hopkins because if you look at that fight, it's that fight that I go, Kovalev has pretty good fundamentals and a pretty good jab and bloody good power. Golovkin was really good at all three. Now, where I draw the line is Tony and Jones, and I'm happy to argue about McCallum.
Yeah.
What about Hagler?
No, so Hagler's the best.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not like Hagler's the man, so I'm not.
See, it's unfair. It's unfair for a guy like me who loves Roy Jones to say Roy Jones is the best because he was a physical freak and he was only a middleweight for so long. So I wouldn't put him if you would say to me head to head Jones versus whoever, I'd probably pick Jones 9 times out of 100, right?
It's
but
the best
as a middleweight, he's not cemented himself.
Yeah, but it's
do you know what I
direct
mean?
the both boxers went, whereas Hagler went up to that weight, and Jones started that weight and went up from it. So that's
and just to make a point about the Kovalev fight though, one thing I will say is Kovalev is 6'2" with long arms. Golovkin's 5'10" with not the greatest of reaches. So
he's
I
a
think
much bigger
Hopkins,
guy.
that's what I would say about the jabs and the footwork and stuff. But I understand where you're coming from stylistically. I just think size-wise, so it does matter.
That vision of Kovalev was a monster. I watched Kovalev fight Nathan Cleverly at the Motor Point, and don't get me wrong, Cleverly wasn't elite. He was a domestic world champion at best, but my God, that guy could punch.
Kovalev made him look like a domestic world
first
champion.
right hand Cleverly took, just disposed of him like Cleverly just thought. You can see Cleverly's face, like, oh shit, Cleverly thought he was the dog's bollocks. Then the second
speaking of right hands,
honestly,
everyone knows the punch I'm talking about when I talk about that first fight with Golovkin and Canelo, and Canelo's overhand right. That was the moment that Canelo lost that fight.
Yeah, he goes, "Fuck this."
What am I to do?
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Terminator 2 when he shoots that other Terminator, and then he just heals instantly.
You're like, oh,
and he's like, "Oh God."
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of.
Or I was kind of thinking of an Austin Powers. Die! Why won't you die?
Yeah.
Golovkin said he felt like it. Did he say I think he made reference to it the other day. He said it felt like a slap or something. Not a hard punch. Yeah.
Well, but Golovkin really putting the smackdown on Canelo, and I am enjoying it. To be fair, before we go, there is a few more nice fights on the card. Do you want to? We'll go with Bam Rodriguez because this guy has just been absolutely tearing it up, taking
second
on
best
all
southpaw on the planet right now.
Bring your belt, I will take it off you. Seems to be his calling card. So he's fighting Israel Gonzalez but he's defending this time against Israel Gonzalez in the co-main. What's your opinions on that one?
I think Bam is the best fighter in the best weight class in boxing. So I don't think he's number one, but I think of the Superflies, which is my favorite weight class, and I think it's the best weight class. I think if everyone fought today, I think Bam wins it. The kid he's in with is an absolute nightmare, by the way.
He's a whirlwind.
Have you watched the Gonzalez fight?
There's like people are talking about matchmaking. I honestly think, anyone going to this, they're just spoiled for choice, really.
Yeah. Now, I need to correct myself there. I said second best. He's actually, in my opinion, the third best southpaw on the planet. I have Shakur and Usyk.
Oh.
I don't have Bud as a out-and-out southpaw.
As an actual southpaw, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Bam Rodriguez, I nearly cried when I saw the name Gonzalez, and then
I don't want to see
I
that.
had a closer look, and obviously it's not the Gonzalez we all wished it was.
Yeah,
But
because
it's
I
still a great fight.
made that mistake initially.
And Bam Rodriguez, like you said, Adam, he's the best in one of, if not the best weight classes at the moment. He's absolutely phenomenal. He can punch, he can move, he can punch while he moves, which is a very, very, very rare skill at the highest of levels. And I think he's going to put on a show, and I think he could be the performance of the night.
Yeah, just quickly, Marty Mack jumped in there saying he's referencing that first fight. I think Triple G proved a chin like Hagler in that fight. He really did, because even poor Canelo was like, "What the fuck do I have to do here?"
If you can punch like he can, if you can take a punch like he can, and if you've got the fundamentals that he can, you're a pain in the arse for absolutely anybody ever.
Yeah,
that's the argument there.
You know, you need all your birds in a row to get anything out of him, and obviously Canelo did that night.
What do you think of Rodriguez, Michael?
Yeah.
He's a special talent for sure, but I think I'd like to see him step up and see some bigger fights, because I believe the guy he's fighting is ranked number 18 or something by BoxRec, or something like that on the
he's not that highly ranked, but such a deep division.
It's a good division. Have you seen him fight Roman Gonzalez?
I haven't. No.
Right, watch that fight, because it's one of those fights where basically they kind of got Chocolatito to this stage where they were like, right, this is the guy. We're going to put him in with, you know, they were going for like Rung Vasai at this stage, and they were like, right, we're going to put him in with him, and they're so good at that weight class because they have to be to get anywhere near it. Mm-hmm. Watch that fight, man. He's a pain in the arse, basically.
Yeah. Now, with Rodriguez stepping up, don't forget how he won the title.
Yeah,
you know, he stepped up a weight class 2 weeks' notice and beat one of the most dangerous men below 120 pounds. You know, like he really proved himself that night, and it was a coming out party, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I think we did the discussion that he was good, but like that there's good and there's good.
Exactly. Yeah. No, there is good and there's good, and he's definitely good. And he's in my pound for pound top 5. Like I
he's like the guy. How old is he? He's 20 years old, isn't he, or something?
22.
22.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah,
he's a special talent for sure. One I need to do a lot more watching with, because I haven't been.
He's fun to watch too.
Yeah,
I don't watch a lot of
the other young talent. Stevenson, this guy is explosive and fun to watch, where Stevenson is just fundamentally brilliant, but he's never ever going to knock anyone out.
I don't know now. Maybe not out cold, but he's going to hurt you.
Oh no, he'll certainly hurt them, but he's very happy to just outbox anyone and take his money and go home.
So I'm going to quickly interject before we start arguing on Stevenson. So Michael was saying needs to watch a bit more of the like the lighter weight classes.
Yeah,
3 fighters. Sure. Who would you recommend for him to go watch?
Well anyway.
Yeah,
I've watched Inoue plenty of times. Yeah, I've watched Inoue.
Jesus, I just love him. You know, I
haven't been in the cave that much for the lighter weights, but
so I would say you've got Roman Gonzalez if you haven't seen him.
Yeah, Chocolatito, of course. I've watched Chocolatito. Yeah,
right. Nakatani.
Nakatani, I'll check him out.
Watch Nakatani. I love Nakatani. Just
not Chinga.
Yeah.
Is he the Japanese fighter?
No, South African. He won last weekend. Not last weekend.
Sorry, I got him
weekend.
That was a cracking fight. I managed just to be up for it, and oh my god, it was brilliant.
Yeah. You know? Kaiguchi is the Japanese fighter. He's also fantastic.
Yeah, he is.
So yeah, there's honestly, man, like just go onto the ring, go down the rankings, dude. The fights are incredible. The other two on the card that I had noted was Akhmedov versus Rosado. So obviously Rosado knocked out Melikuziev.
Yeah.
And he's now got. They don't give him like it's not an easy life. Akhmedov, he lost to Gongora, but I think personally Rosado caught lightning in a bottle in the Melikuziev fight. And I think I would fancy Akhmedov in this one, but I think he is very classic Eastern Bloc in terms of he's a little stiff, and I think if Rosado can kind of keep it fairly tight in terms of technically loose in terms of tension, he will survive, but it could be an uncomfortable night. I can't wait for Williams and Conway because I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. And Conway's promoter, for some reason, DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Will you wear this top if I send it to you?" So I told him I
I tell you
would.
what, Conway has to be one of the biggest light middleweights in the
Oh,
world.
he's huge.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Now let's not talk about Fonfara. He's a freak of nature, but Conway is so big. Like,
and he's thick. He's not not skinny.
He's probably got like a 30-inch waist and then probably like a 46-inch
Yeah.
chest. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's huge. And like
Beautiful
I
jab.
put him, like Williams is an athlete more than a boxer.
Mm.
We talked about this before, where
Yeah.
you can overcompensate for your skills with your athleticism.
Yeah.
Now, Conway, is he skillful enough to stop that athleticism being effective? I don't know. Like, he doesn't seem to step off a shot well, and Amo Williams likes to hop in with that right hook.
So I had this written down, and basically in that fight, Conway for me is the better boxer. But the two things are power. Does he have the power to keep Amo Williams off him? And Amo Williams does have the power to hurt him. But he goes back in straight lines, and this is exactly what you said. He's got a lovely jab, but too much of Kieran Conway's fights are right on the ropes.
Jab and move a lot of his fights, Kieran Conway.
Yeah.
He just when it gets tough, when he gets in the trenches, that's when Conway struggles, I think. And I think if you put the pressure on him, I think he folds a bit.
Conway could have beat Sissoko.
Yeah, it was there. I always remember his fight against Cheeseman, and he was beating Cheeseman and just ran out of gas because he'd got like 2 minutes notice for the thing. I've got a lot of time for Kieran Conway, but if Amo Williams has his head screwed on, which we have no idea if he does, I mean, this is designed for Williams to win because they want Williams to fight Fowler. That's the way this is going.
Yeah.
Now look, everyone Williams got known. Sorry there, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right.
Williams got known, but infamously for that sparring footage.
Yeah.
Where it looked like a guy who had just been on his first day in the boxing gym. It didn't even look like a relatively, even you couldn't call him a novice. Do you know?
Why would you have him and approach him?
That's it. And it was sad to watch. I instantly took a dislike to Williams because I thought to myself, why would anyone ever do that? And then obviously it's come out now since that he's had, mental health issues and he's had a tough time of it. And Eddie Hearn apparently has done a lot to help him get back into the ring. There a few months ago when he fought Dennis Duglin. Yeah.
Mama's boy.
Mama's boy. Yeah. And it was actually nice to see, but you've got a crowd now like myself who would happily see him chinned because of that video still. And then you've got a crowd, who will take sympathy of him and be glad he's back doing what he loves because of the mental health side of things. So I think he's got a very, very good opportunity here to be loved and hated.
You want to move the needle?
Yeah, exactly.
Moving the needle.
So are you all going Williams then on that one?
Sorry?
Are you all going for Williams on that one?
I think he'll win it. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think Williams.
With Rosado, I said it before on here, I think he's one of the most underrated fighters on the planet. And I picked him to beat Beck the Bully. And I let everyone know on Twitter when it happened. I was so amazed that he actually did just chin him. And I could see it coming, but it didn't look like it was going to happen the first 2 rounds.
Anyway, guys,
he beat Danny Jacobs as well, I think. I think he won that fight.
He did. Oh, yeah, he did. Now that's a boring fight.
I have to say,
that's the worst I've ever seen.
Your talk on the lighter weights has clearly worked because Stephen McGurr is now interested in the lighter weights, which I don't think was ever his forte, but there you go. So you've sold that. Is there anything else you just want to review before we wind up now?
Shall we very briefly mention the shit show that is, the promotion for Ben Eubank?
Oh yeah, let's mention what I call the celebrity kids boxing.
Can I just make a point first because it's been on my head all day?
You make that point.
So I went onto YouTube this morning. The first thing I saw was the face-to-face with Eubank and Ben. Less than an hour later, I start seeing rumors that this fight's in jeopardy. Now, I reckon they haven't announced an undercard. They only show this face-to-face, which everyone loves, today, or last night, really. And then today, the fight's in jeopardy. They are making a smash and grab to try and get as many people interested as possible because
Oh yeah, it's a real Eddie Hearn tactic.
it's
Like, I
all
mean,
coming out. It comes in
One big
trees, as
con.
they say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Okay, interesting.
senior doesn't have the jurisdiction
I was going to say, like, who gives a shit?
to
Like,
say,
he's nothing to do with this
you're
fight.
not fighting. He might have done when he was meant to fight Golovkin back 6 years ago.
He did him a
But-
He
favor.
wouldn't mind, didn't he?
Oh, he did. He did, yeah. Yeah, you have your pen ready. If Canelo pulls out, you're ready there with your pen ender. And
No, I don't want to particularly fight. You can fight Conor Ben, actually. Yeah.
if I'm not going to make £157 by the 8th of October. That's the only problem.
No, but you can do a catch weight the other way.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, I think it's just a big publicity thing. I think now
Completely.
the quote is actually quite sad, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go on to. Yeah,
But it's a real
Go on ahead,
Hearn
Michael,
thing
yeah.
as well.
But that
Pulling
wasn't
out-
Hearn. It's not Hearn.
I
It
know
was
it's
an exclusive
not, but
interview he did with the Mail.
no,
And
but
by saying, like, I'm sure Michael's going to go on and say what I'm thinking here as well is, like, I've already lost one son. I'm not losing another. Like, that kind of hit me a bit when I read it. Like, I'm not going to lie.
weight cutting's no joke. Like, when you don't forget as well, when Eubank Jr. fought Groves, when he was fighting a super middleweight, he didn't, that was probably as heavy as he could go. He wouldn't have rehydrated to much more than 168 pounds, maybe 171, 172 max. Whereas Groves was coming in a lot bigger than that. That's the reason why Eubank Jr. has gone down to 160, and then now they want him to come down to 157. How big's how much heavier can he come in on the night, Eubank Jr.? Was it 5 or 6 pounds heavier?
I read it was 165.
That's what I read.
Don't forget as well, you're not going to hold a punch as well when you're
you're
that
not.
weak on the night.
That's the point.
I kind
That's
of get
the
where
point.
Senior's coming from when he talks about his son.
The last
I do
thing
kinda
you
get it.
lose, is your cerebral fluid, and that's
don't
the
talk to me about cerebral fluid. That fucking shit
that's-
nearly killed me.
that's the fluid around your brain that protects it when you take a bang. And if that's depleted, there's less fluid separating your brain from your skull. So if you get rocked, it's dangerous business. And I understand what Senior's saying, if he is saying it, really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Eubanks
signed the
Jr.'s
contract.
Yeah, well, that too. And he's not the biggest of blokes. Like, he could box. I bet you any money, if he was an amateur, he could comfortably box at 165 middleweight and hold that.
Yeah.
So
I agree,
he should be able to make 157.
It's basically it's a very good line because it's the equivalent of like a mental health line. No one's going to call bullshit on this because you don't want to be the dickhead that calls bullshit on this.
Yeah, even though I did call,
I think the fight happened.
There's mental health and Fury's. So
Yeah, so
and
I think it's
really call bullshit on it because
very
I've
good
every, it's like been there, done that, worn the t-shirt. Like I've been in out in Morsayet. So sorry, like Fury, your behavior does not seem to tally with what you're saying, and it's like this great sacred calf now, mental health. It's the one thing you can't touch. It's the one thing they go for.
It's just the PC era. That's all it is.
No, but it's not.
Fighters were struck. Like everyone laughed at was it McCall who cried in the ring
in the 90s? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, where was mental health then? It's different now.
Yeah, but
And,
then Tyson Fury being the exact opposite. Then his behaviors, don't belie what he says about mental health.
Oh no, but all I'm saying is today's society loves it and eats it up now. When back then it was, what's wrong with you? Would you just carry on with it?
It's something to punch
And
down.
I think with what
I forgot Bruno as well. Bruno, he struggled, didn't he?
Yeah, bipolar.
Bruno struggled.
And with
this mental health.
With this promotion, I'm going to call it with a asterisk there. I think it either will tank it and people will say, "Oh, fuck that, I'm selling my ticket." No, not going then. Or because they look at it as if say, "Oh, Eubank's selling out if he does still carry on with the fight." Or people will just all tune in and be like, "Jesus, is Ben going to absolutely destroy this lad now?" And then, people will tune in for the violence,
It's the will they, won't they? It's standard procedure. And the undercard has been leaked by, is it International Boxing News or something?
Yeah, I saw that. Was it leaked or is that rumored?
Well, I mean,
What's
he's
it
pretty
looking
good.
like?
He's
Yeah.
pretty good in terms of getting the stuff right. If I can't remember,
Well,
if
and
I
it's a mixture of Wasserman, sorry, not
Yeah.
Wellerman. It's not
Scottish.
a C. Wasserman and
Matchroom.
Matchroom. Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, sorry.
So do we all think it's going ahead then? Because I do.
Yeah. There's too much money on the table. I'm not doing this. Of course it's going
I
ahead.
have a ticket for it, and I have a ticket for Arsenal Liverpool the next day, and I think both of them are going to be going in.
Sure, you've convinced me this whole thing's a big con job. I got to be honest. Like, were they just using it to build each other's name up? Like Eubank Junior, I think his popularity's gone down. Like, he had quite a big upcoming, but I think the last few years he's really tried to build his name back. He's gone back with Sky. That's helped a little bit, but he was meant to be the main man, but I don't think he is anymore in that promotion. And then at the same, and I also think obviously Ben's got a big come up, and I think they kind of need each other. I think,
but they really
in a way, but I don't think they'll actually fight each other.
World title contenders. So
the last thing I'm going to say on this, because I have to go soon, is Ben's got nothing to lose. This is the biggest win-win I've ever seen for a fighter. Really, he's getting paid a ridiculous amount of money. He's moving up weight. He doesn't have to do a weight cut. This will be the comfiest camp of his life. If he wins, oh my God, you just knocked out a middleweight, because he's going to win. If he's going to win, it's going to be by KO. And if he loses, you lost to a middleweight. It doesn't matter. Go back down to welterweight where you're comfortable. That's your weight class. He's not going to get any flack no matter what.
What if he gets battered though? Like embarrassed, like absolutely one-sided beatdown.
I'm new to this. I wasn't a middleweight. I bit off more than I could chew. I'm going back down to where I am.
The difference is it's not Golovkin Brook, because Eubank's not Golovkin.
It's not world level for starters, is it?
Yeah. So what this is it's very good marketing, but neither.
It's celebrity boxing as for
Chris Eubank has a legitimate shot at winning a world title at middleweight at the minute, with the way the titles are about to fragment. But they don't really expect Eubank to. They're kind of banking on that being there afterwards. Conor Benn is trying to tread water, because at some stage, if Spence Crawford comes off, those belts are going to go there. Because at the minute, his options are have another fight that we're all fed up with it now, right? Al-Chidi was probably the last one. Or he has to fight Ortiz and Ennis. They have no interest in that. And he's going to get $7 million for this. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah. He mentioned, I don't know if you watched the face-to-face, he mentioned Ugas and Thurman.
I haven't watched it yet. That's not happening. Eddie's not.
He is not ready for Ugas.
No.
He can drop as many names as we want. We know it's not happening. Like Ugas, every time that Hearn gives a list of names, he always gives that one kind of dodgy name.
Well, it wasn't Hearn that gave it. It was Ben. He said, "Oh, it was Thurman or Ugas."
Ben learning from Hearn. Yeah. Hearn. Hearn is feeding Ben this.
Thurman was the name that Hearn mentioned the most.
That's the one they want. It's not going to happen.
No, but it's never the name that ends up with. There's always a name at the end that'll always be there, and that's going to be the.
Well, look, hopefully, boys will be able to preview it in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely.
And, fingers crossed.
Watch it.
But
the week after, then we have the women. So
I wouldn't be too gutted if it doesn't happen. If I'm being honest with you, to be brutally honest, I would be too gutted.
If it doesn't happen, I'll get my £100 or £130.
Yeah, I'm with Adam there. Just for the absolute bullshit, I'm with it.
In boxing, you've got two things you've got to learn to enjoy: the good fights when they happen, and the bullshit when it comes along. You just roll with it.
Well, there's an awful lot of bullshit at the moment, Adam.
Yeah, that's true. Right, gents, I'm gonna go.
Yes, I think we are going to call it a day there. So cheers,
safe trip, and we'll chat to you when you're back.
Yeah, enjoy, mate.
Cheers to Michael and cheers to Adam. I'm going to say goodbye, so don't leave until I say goodbye and end it. All right, lads, thanks very much, and may the best man win.
Cheers.
Cheers.